So it looked like Chennedy Carter is back in the headlines for calling out a double standard and bringing back up her incident with Caitlin Clark. Guys, this is crazy.
Can you believe Chennedy Carter is back in the headlines, and not for a positive reason? Just when we thought the drama surrounding her incident with Caitlin Clark had settled, Carter chooses to bring attention to herself once more. It's as if she can't resist keeping this controversy going.
Because Chennedy Carter, in fairness to her, has almost revived everything. She's revived her career. She's back. She's guaranteed a contract next year. So many good things are happening to Chennedy Carter, especially what she's doing in China. And now she's bringing up, she's bringing back one of her bad moments here to make a bad argument.
You might be wondering, didn't Carter learn from her past? Apparently not. Her career was finally getting back on track. The controversy was fading away, and then, out of nowhere, she brings it all up again. But here's where it gets even more intriguing. Carter's not just bringing it up, she's trying to frame it as a double standard between the NBA and WNBA. Is she for real?
But, we see right here, Chennedy Carter calls it double standards between WNBA, NBA, displays of emotion.
For Carter to bring this all up again and try to play the victim is not just misguided, it's downright delusional. She's not exposing any double standards. All she's doing is reminding everyone of her own bad behavior and poor sportsmanship.
I thought Chennedy Carter just want to ride off in the sunset, not say nothing at all, because we already know as soon as you speak out, people is going to be on you like white on rice, bruh. They finna be firing you up every chance they get. And this is another case of clueless behavior from the WNBA. Now, this young lady right here is claiming that it's a double standard between the NBA and WNBA, bringing up the incident with her and Caitlin Clark when she clearly assaulted Caitlin.
What does this say about Carter as both a player and a person? Is she truly unaware of how her actions are perceived? Or is this just a desperate attempt to stay in the spotlight? Whatever her reasons, one thing is certain. This latest outburst isn't helping her reputation in the court of public opinion. Let's rewind to the intense game between Chennedy Carter and Caitlin Clark during the Indiana Fever versus Chicago Sky matchup. The tension was palpable, and then, out of nowhere, Carter blindsided Clark, shoving her hard to the ground. One moment, Clark was reaching for the ball. The next, she was on the court, caught off guard.
And Clark. I mean, that's clearly a foul, which was called. The question is, will they call it unnecessary?
The arena fell silent. Players, coaches, and fans were all in shock. Carter's action went far beyond a normal fall. It crossed a line that left everyone questioning what they had just witnessed. You'd expect the referees to act swiftly, right? But here's where it gets strange. They called it a common foul. Can you believe it? As if Carter had simply reached in a little too aggressively. The crowd couldn't believe their eyes.
And then Chennedy Carter cheap shots Caitlin, and it's called as a common foul. That is why they talk. By the way, what Alyssa Thomas did to Angel Reese was worse than what Chennedy Carter did to Caitlin Clark.
What happened to Carter? No ejection, no immediate suspension. She stayed in the game. It's almost as if the whole incident was brushed aside, as if it didn't matter. Players have been tossed for far less. Yet there was Carter, still on the court after that push. How did she handle it all? She stayed silent during interviews back then, but now, she's bringing it all back up. Remember when pushing someone to the ground was considered assault, not just a result of emotions running high? Carter's trying to change the narrative, but her argument has more holes than Swiss cheese. Let's break down why her comeback isn't gaining any traction.
When emotions get to women, y'all opinions is funny. It don't even get this bad, like squaring up in a game. Way worse than anything I see in a female do.
Carter's latest Instagram rant has left many puzzled. This time, she's claiming there's a double standard in how the NBA and WNBA handle on-court incidents. To back her point, she referenced an NBA altercation between Jordan Clarkson and Ron Holland Paul.
Paul Reed right here. Right, he gets big bucket here. He turns around, and then JC's in his way, but he goes right at him.
And then he gets another bump, and oh boy, who put up the fist?
But here's the problem. Her comparison doesn't hold up. She's trying to equate her blindsided push on Caitlin Clark to a mutual scuffle in the NBA. It's like comparing apples to oranges, except one of those apples is actually a rock.
It's very hard for a player to square up when you hit them when you blindside somebody. No offense. Like, I'm sorry, it's hard for Caitlin Clark to square up to you when she's on the ground after she had her back turned on you.
Let's be real for a moment. When you shove someone from behind, sending them crashing to the floor, that's not just poor sportsmanship, it's downright dangerous. And that's exactly what Carter did to Clark. It wasn't a heat of the moment clash or two players squaring off. It was a calculated cheap shot that could have seriously injured Clark.
No, she is definitely wrong, bro. You're physically assaulting people in the W. There's a big difference. People in the NBA ain't coming to blows, hip checking people. This ain't UFC in the NBA.
Now Carter is trying to spin this as an emotional outburst that's being blown out of proportion. In her Instagram story, she wrote, "When emotions get to women, y'all get opinions." Is she serious? This isn't about emotions or opinions. It's about actions and consequences. Here's where Carter's argument really falls apart. She points to an NBA incident where two players were ejected after a confrontation, but in her case, she only got called for a common foul. That's right, she blindsided Clark, sent her sprawling, and basically got away with it. If anything, the double standard worked in her favor.
Hitting someone with their back turns 100% worse than two players going at it. And by the way, they both got ejected and they're both going to get a suspension. You got called for a common foul. And that's where I think the big difference is that everybody knows. Carter's a fair point. She does, but I think there is a huge difference between what Chennedy Carter did, the aftermath of what Chennedy Carter did. Chennedy Carter screamed, "You B-word," and smacked someone in the back, and blindsided Caitlin Clark for...
Some of Carter's defenders tried to claim that Clark elbowed her first, but let's set the record straight. That's a flat-out lie. The footage is crystal clear. Clark was simply reaching for the ball, and her arms swung naturally. There was no elbow, no intentional contact, just another weak attempt to justify Carter's actions.
What happens in basketball when players are going for the ball? Sometimes, limbs hit other places. And I think Caitlin Clark grabbed the ball, and I don't even think she connected with anything. But Chennedy Carter was well, nothing was... Caitlin said nothing happened.
Players are going for the ball, and sometimes limbs hit other places. I think Clark reached for the ball, and honestly, I don't even think she made contact with it. But as Chennedy said, nothing really happened. You know what's really telling? If Clark had actually elbowed Carter, you can bet we would have heard about it immediately. Carter's not exactly shy when it comes to sharing her opinion, so if that had been the case, she definitely would have spoken up.
Chennedy Carter, if she had gotten elbowed from Caitlin Clark, she would have straight away said, "I was just giving it back to her." She can't hit me and expect nothing. Everyone who knows Chennedy Carter knows Chennedy. Well, not who knows Chennedy Carter. I don't know her personally, but anyone who's seen any of Chennedy Carter knows.
Remember when Carter dismissed Clark as just a three-point shooter? That's how vocal Carter can be. It's pretty clear there's some personal beef fueling this whole situation. Her comments and actions suggest this isn't just about the game. It's about something deeper between the two.
Also, the fact is she went on Twitter saying she's not even good, and what does she do other than three-point shooting? So this was a personal.
But let's zoom out for a second. This incident with Carter isn't happening in a vacuum. It's part of a larger pattern where Clark seems to be a target for overly aggressive play. In that same game, Clark was hit with multiple fouls that should have been called flagrant, but the refs let them slide. It's almost like they got blinders on when it comes to protecting one.
It is bullying when Caitlin Clark, in the game against the Seattle Storm, she got hit with 3 to 4 fouls that could have been called as flagrant. The referees blew no calls on 3 of them. On most of them. I was they blew a common foul once. Caitlin Clark, by the way, was it 3 days earlier? Got punched in the face. Caitlin Clark, 3 days before this game, got punched in the face. And the referees called it double. The referees had it out for Caitlin Clark. The players had it out for Caitlin Clark. And everyone was watching this Chicago game. So we went into this game with the narrative that the referees were screwing Caitlin. They were letting players go at Caitlin.
Connecticut debut at Dallas. This is her second stint with the Rakia and look, Griner and Jackson.